biggest Western power to recognize Palestine so far. Over 140 countries already recognize a Palestinian state, including more than a dozen in Europe.
I believe in the future of the two-state solution as the foundation of a regional security architecture that will allow Israel to live in peace and security with its neighbors. I believe in the need to unite our voices in Paris, London, and everywhere else to recognize a Palestinian state and initiate this political dynamic, which is the only one consistent with a perspective of peace.
The reaction from Tel Aviv has been swift and furious. The Israeli Prime Minister wasted no time in condemning Macron's decision, calling it a grave mistake. He posted on X, "Such a move rewards terror and risks creating another Iranian proxy, just as Gaza became." He termed the Palestinian state in these conditions as a launchpad to attack Israel. Meanwhile, Gideon Sa'ar has also hit out at Macron. Sa'ar said President Macron cannot provide security to Israel. He took a hit at the French president, saying he hoped he succeeded in doing so on the streets of Paris. The opposition leader, Yair Lapid, meanwhile, said on X, "It's time Israel put a clear proposal on the table to end the war and get the hostages back home." Reactions worldwide highlighting a deeply divided international landscape on the issue. On one side, the Palestinian Authority has warmly welcomed France's decision. Hamas has also welcomed the move as a positive step. In Europe, the sentiment appears to be shifting. Just days before France's announcement, in fact, several European countries, including Britain, alongside France and others, condemned Israel's restrictions on aid shipments into Gaza and the killings of Palestinians seeking food. The British Prime Minister has indicated that a ceasefire would put Europe on a path to the recognition of a Palestinian state and a two-state solution. And this suggests a growing momentum among some European nations, perhaps towards recognition. France's announcement also comes on the heels of the US cutting short the Gaza ceasefire talks in Qatar, citing a lack of good faith from Hamas, which the group has vehemently denied. Canada's Prime Minister, meanwhile, has also tweeted out in support of a two-state solution, saying that the country will be pushing forth the agenda at an upcoming UN high-level conference on the two-state solution in New York next week. And as France takes that firm stance for Palestinian statehood, Israelis and Palestinians have reacted strongly to that. Listen in to these reactions.
The decision that France talked about yesterday with regards to us, we wish to have a Palestinian state, and the decision that France has taken is a bold decision. However, will other countries that control the world accept this brave decision? We want every person to call on every nation, every country. If France has given us the decision, it's a brave decision. It must rally and mobilize on this matter and not be alone in this picture.
I think that is a real slap in the face to Israel and the victims of October 7th. I think that is the easy thing to do. I think it's easy to put the blame on Israel and say, oh, we reward this act of terrorism with a Palestinian state, and maybe that is some lip service for his voters.
And let's just break this down with further perspectives from the former German ambassador to the NATO. Thank you very much for being here. I have to begin by asking you for your reaction to what's playing out. This, of course, is a major announcement. It has resulted in that diplomatic standoff between the two sides. But at the same time, we're looking at perhaps a momentum among European countries to go in this direction. What do you make of that?
I don't think a momentum within Europe. I've doubts, strong doubts. Look at, for example, my compatriots in Germany. They have clearly said today they will not follow the French step, nor the British will do so. But for me, is there it would be helpful if we got real progress towards the two-state solution we have been defending in the past. And we were near to a solution 25, 30 years ago. Now we are far away from, let's say, a two-state solution, as Israel refused it totally. And therefore, please, would it be really helpful, such a recognition of Palestine now? 147 out of 193 member states of the UN have done so. France is following it in order to raise pressure on Israel. Yes. But the irony again is Hamas has been congratulating France to that step, and Hamas has always refused the two-state solution. They have never agreed to it. And therefore, the French do something which may theoretically be helpful, but in line really, what I would like to see is more pressure on Israel with regard to the treatment of the Palestinians in Gaza and with regard to the treatment of the occupied territories. Perhaps this could be helpful towards a new step in the direction of a suspension of the association agreement between Israel and the EU. This could be, let's say, perhaps more helpful executing a certain pressure. But helpful towards a two-state solution, I've real doubts, because I see a diminished Palestinian authority in the occupied territories. I see, let's say, no progress insofar they have a territory which is, let's say, diminished in comparison that of, let's say, the end of the 90s. Where is real progress, frankly spoken?
Right. So that is your view and your expectation in a way. Where do you see things going, though, at this point? And also, what do you see playing out at the United Nations?
What I would like to see is, first of all, a real step towards the release of the hostages and to give, let's say, a certain future at least to Gaza, again, to people in Gaza. Let's say a humanitarian solution. I don't see it up till now. Hamas is refusing, Israel is not able, let's say, to reach it. What can do the United Nations insofar? United Nations are to some extent, let's say, dependent on the willingness of, let's say, key member states. As the US, Whitcock has been going back to the US, reflecting about solutions for Gaza, perhaps a humanitarian corridor or something like this going on, but it's not real progress. And the second step, really, if we were able to come back to a real two-state solution, perhaps in a confederation with Jordan, we would be back at the end of the 90s, Rabin's time, and then get a real solution. But I don't see the government of Netanyahu going forward towards such a solution. I regret deeply.
We're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for being here.
Pleasure as always.
All right, we're shifting focus now to India, where the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has added another record to his name. Today, he overtook the former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's 48-year-old record of having the second longest consecutive stint as Prime Minister. Today, Prime Minister Modi completes 4,078 days in office to overtake Indira Gandhi's uninterrupted spell of 4,077 days. From January 24, 1966 to March 24, 1977. Prime Minister Modi is now behind only Jawaharlal Nehru, independent India's first Prime Minister, who served for 16 years and 286 days from August 15, 1947 till May 27, 1964. But Prime Minister Modi is the longest serving non-Congress Prime Minister. Prime Minister Modi also has several other records to his name, many of which are firsts in India's political history. He is the only non-Congress Prime Minister to complete 2 full terms in office, and is the only Prime Minister other than Jawaharlal Nehru to win 3 consecutive elections. He is also the first sitting Prime Minister since Indira Gandhi to be re-elected with a majority. And let's now talk about what's happening in the United States. President Donald Trump's rare visit to the under-renovation Fed headquarters is making headlines for an on-camera tussle. This happened during Trump's tour on Thursday. Take a look.
So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a 3rd building. Is what that is. That's a 3rd building.
Well, no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's
So,
not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening, and it's got a long way. Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them, but we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use, but no, we don't. We expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
The tense exchange over renovation costs compounds an ongoing rift between Trump and Powell as the US president continues to push the Fed chief to cut interest rates and repeatedly criticize Powell, who Trump had appointed himself in 2017 during his first presidential tenure. But the US president has turned down the heat on the future of Powell's remaining tenure, saying that firing the Fed chief is a big move and not necessary. The latest remarks coming after Trump called Powell a, quote, numbskull early this week, among other adjectives. The Fed plays a crucial role in setting US monetary policy, balancing inflation, employment, economic growth. Powell also highlighted the risks of Trump's tariffs on inflation, underscoring the complex economic landscape.
Lower the target for the federal funds rate by 1/4%.
Going straight across now to Susan Teherani, our correspondent, who's been tracking those developments for us. Susan, it's very interesting, this tussle, but also Trump, in a way, his reaction on on the Fed chief's tenure, calling it a big move to fire the Fed chief. And we're looking at this rift, which continues to make headlines for a number of controversial reasons.
Yeah, Molly, that was very interesting. And it was just so classic Donald Trump, hiring somebody himself and then putting the person on the spot sometime later. Really, it was a moment made for television. And this is a president that understands television. Remember, he had his reality TV show, The Celebrity Apprentice, where he would fire individuals and say, you're fired on the spot, and everything would happen sort of on camera. This really resembled something like that. And although, this moment sort of ended in a lighthearted laughter when one of the reporters asked, is there anything that would change your mind regarding Powell? He sort of laughed, pat him on the back and said, well, he could lower interest rates. So, yeah, it was a tense moment, but it was also very strategically planned by the president and his team to, first of all, be the first president to go there in 20 years. Critics say it questions the Fed's independence when Trump goes there like that, but he's also a real estate developer. So he sort of mixed in this renovation with, putting pressure on Powell regarding the interest rates to somewhat tarnish his image as an overspender, maybe perhaps, even though some of the comments he made weren't accurate. Sometimes it just doesn't matter. When that kind of messaging is out there, then the impression is already made, and sort of like how he's reckless with money, so to say. But nonetheless, he, without making an official announcement, he stopped short of saying that he's not going to fire Powell. He knows the backlash he's going to receive of that. But nonetheless, he didn't shy away from somewhat humiliating him in front of the public.
Right. We're leaving it there for the moment, Susan. Thanks very much. And staying on with the United States, a top U.S. Justice Department official spent hours grilling Ghislaine Maxwell, the imprisoned accomplice of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, as President Trump struggles to tamp down a furor over his handling of the explosive case. Maxwell's attorney, David Marcus, said the former British socialite answered every question she was asked during a day-long meeting with the Deputy Attorney General. At a courthouse in Florida, Marcus, however, said he will not comment on the substance of the meeting with Blanche, Trump's former personal lawyer for his hush money trial and 2 federal criminal cases.
Very productive day today with the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. First, we want to thank the Deputy Attorney General for being so professional with all of us and for meeting with us. He took a full day and asked a lot of questions, and Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped, she never invoked a privilege, she never declined to answer. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability. And that's all the comment we're going to have today about the meeting. We don't want to comment about the substance of the meeting for obvious reasons, and we'll go from there. So thank you all so much.
Earlier this week, Blanche said, if Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. 63-year-old Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence after being convicted in 2021 of recruiting underage girls for Epstein, who died in a New York jail in 2019 while awaiting trial in his own sex trafficking case. Maxwell is the only former Epstein associate convicted in connection with his activities, which right-wing conspiracy theorists allege included trafficking young models for VIPs. The meeting with Maxwell marks another attempt by the Trump administration to diffuse anger among the Republican president's own supporters over what they have long seen as a cover-up of sex crimes by Epstein, who was a wealthy financier with high-level connections. Trump was once a close friend of Epstein, and the Wall Street Journal reported on Wednesday that the president's name was among hundreds found during a Department of Justice review of the so-called Epstein files, though there has not been evidence of wrongdoing. Donald Trump filed a $10 billion defamation suit against the Wall Street Journal last week after it reported that he had penned a sexually suggestive letter to Epstein for his 50th birthday in 2003. Meanwhile, Republican House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson said in an interview that the Jeffrey Epstein scandal was not a hoax. He said, quoting, "We want full transparency. We want everybody who was involved in any way with the Epstein evils, let's call it what it was, to be brought to justice as quickly as possible. We want the full weight of the law on their heads." Some news from Japan now, where the big breakthrough from the right-wing populist party in the country's upper house elections is raising fresh questions about immigration, national identity, and the impact of booming tourism there. The Sanseto party, which campaigned on a Trump-style Japanese first slogan, has surged from just 1 seat to 14 in Japan's upper house. While still a minor force in the 248th seat chamber, the result marks a dramatic rise and a reflection of public unease. The surge comes amid record immigration and tourism numbers. As of this year, Japan, which is home to over 3.8 million foreign residents and more than 36 million tourists, visited in 2024, surpassing pre-pandemic levels. Frustrated over Sun Seto's rise and growing public pressure, the Prime Minister Shipa's government earlier pledged tougher immigration controls. His Liberal Democratic Party, in fact, has set an ambitious goal: zero illegal foreign nationals. Officials say the immigration and residency management system will be strengthened. A new administrative body described as a central control tower has been launched to coordinate efforts across ministries. The move comes as frustrations grow in tourism hotspots like Mount Fuji, where local communities have reported disruptive visitor behavior and a loss of local tranquility. Taiwan is on the boil as thousands of protesters gathered in Taipei to rally against the KMT party. The protesters are calling for the recall of over 24 opposition lawmakers accused of being pro-China. Supporters of Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party braved the rain to rally in front of the presidential office, backing the recall of 31 KMT lawmakers accused of being pro-China and a threat to national security. On Saturday, Taiwan will hold a crucial vote dubbed the Great Recall to decide the fate of these lawmakers. To succeed, the recall measure needs to win the support of a percentage of eligible voters in each district. If successful, a special election will be held to fill the vacant seats, allowing all parties to compete. The DPP won last year's presidential election but came up short in the legislature, holding 51 seats. While the main opposition party, KMT, and smaller Taiwan People's Party together hold a majority in the parliament with 62 seats, KMT has slammed the recall effort as undermining the self-ruled island's democracy. In recent months, KMT has been working together with smaller parties and independents to block DPP bills and pass controversial pieces of legislation. And this includes limiting the Constitutional Court's powers and cutting the government's budget and raising the threshold for holding recall votes. In a show of diplomatic solidarity, the Chinese foreign minister met with Pakistan's Field Marshal General Asim Munir in Beijing. And this meeting reaffirms what both sides have long described as an ironclad friendship, and underscores China's unwavering support for Pakistan in its fight against all forms of terrorism. According to reports, Wang Yi also expressed confidence in the Pakistan military's ongoing efforts to safeguard Chinese citizens, projects and institutions throughout the country. China's strong backing is seen as a crucial boost for Islamabad as it works to reassure international partners of its commitment to regional stability and counter-terrorism. But this outreach also comes at a time when Pakistan finds itself diplomatically cornered and militarily bruised, with security concerns taking center stage following the deadly Pahalgam terror attack in India, which claimed 26 lives and reignited tensions between India and Pakistan. In response, India had launched Operation Sindoor and annihilated Pakistan's defense and quashed its offense. Islamabad had attempted to launch a retaliatory campaign, but those efforts were swiftly and effectively quashed, failing to produce any meaningful strategic gains. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Buddhism was something that really touched me quite deeply.
What really inspires you when it comes to the Dalai Lama and your interactions with him?
His influence is way beyond just Tibet. His influence is universal. When I was able to meet His Holiness for the first time, I was struck really by how simple and normal he was. He would not be reborn in a Chinese-controlled area if it was not free. He would be born in a free place, but this is completely up to the Tibetan people. It has nothing to do with the Chinese. Right and wrong is so clear, how could you not speak about what's happening and speak with a clear voice?
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look at what is making headlines at this hour.
Freedom from Gaza in negotiations?
Yeah, Gaza, they pulled out of Gaza. They pulled out in terms of negotiating. It was too bad. Hamas.
Now, Donald Trump says that a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is unlikely as Hamas loses leverage in talks and they don't want a deal. Now, India's Prime Minister has offered $565 million to Maldives to bolster its defense forces and infrastructure in the small yet very strategically located neighbor in the Indian Ocean region. The United Nations Food Aid Agency has said that one of the third Gazans are not eating for days. This is Gaza is on the brink of running out of the specialized therapeutic food that is needed to save the lives of the severely malnourished children. Thailand declares martial law in 8 of its districts bordering Cambodia as the countries have traded strikes in a second deadly day of clashes, with the death toll having now risen to 18. Now, Iraqi demonstrators block a road with burning tires as they protest water shortages and also the drying up rivers in Iraq. The country has been intensely impacted by climate change. And England's Joe Root surpasses Ricky Ponting to become the second highest run getter in Test cricket. Root's unbeaten century puts England in a pretty commanding position against India in Manchester. And people queue outside of a mall as Germany's first Labubu store opens in Berlin. Labubu monster dolls have taken over the world, drawing some pretty excited crowds and also adorning the handbags of celebrities such as Rihanna and Cher. The tide is turning pretty fast on the Ukrainian front. Russia is no longer grinding forward, it's in fact surging. In recent weeks, Putin's forces have battered Ukraine with overwhelming firepower, forcing Kiev's troops into a brutal, bloody defense. Take a look.
Russian forces are surging ahead, rewriting the front lines in Ukraine with a wave of decisive attacks. Kyiv reels under relentless fire as Moscow's war machine shows no sign of slowing. These images from Pokrovsk show Ukrainian soldiers escaping Russian ambush under the merciless hail of Russian fire. Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region ordered the evacuation of civilians from 10 frontline settlements. The Russians are not just advancing, they're tearing through Ukraine's defensive lines with ruthless precision, from Kharkiv to Donetsk. Moscow's forces are clawing back territory at a pace unseen since the early days of the invasion. A storm of steel and fire, Russia's Grad multiple launch rocket systems pummeling trenches, ripping apart bunkers, and forcing Ukrainian troops to scatter. The BM-21 Grad is equipped with a pod of 40 launch tubes capable of firing 122 MEM rockets in a span of few seconds. The last few weeks have seen the heaviest aerial bombardment Ukraine has endured since the full-scale war began. Dozens of cities and military zones have been hit by missiles and drone swarms in nightly raids. Frontline soldiers describe the onslaught as apocalyptic, a relentless rain of fire that leaves no time to regroup. Yet, amid calamity, Ukrainian brigades strike back with grit, hunting Russian tanks and armored columns. These images show the destruction of Russian vehicles. Kremlin says Russian forces are pushing to create buffer zones along the border with Ukraine. As fighting rages on in the wake of a third round of peace talks that again failed to yield any progress towards a ceasefire in a fourth year of war. Bureau report. WION, World is One.
In a mega show of strength, Russia is in fact conducting some massive live-fire drills across the Pacific and the Arctic Oceans, as well as the Baltic and the Caspian Seas. Dubbed the July Storm, drills involve more than 150 warships.